I'm not pitching gold. I am pitching Bitcoin, which is defendable by math and code, and you don't argue with that. Bitcoin is extremely cheap on a number of metrics, and I'm comfortable buying it at 30,000 because I think that it is so darn cheap. You give a target but not a time, because if you do both, you'll be wrong on one. So when we say that Bitcoin is priced in fiat, that's just a measuring stick. But I like to say one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Venezuela assumed they could just carry on printing more dollars until people ended up throwing those dollars in the street.
Hello and welcome to Crypto Street. In this video, we are privileged to have Greg Foss, Bitcoin strategist and partner at Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, who will provide valuable insights into the crypto struggle and the potential collapse of the dollar. Today, our focus will be on unraveling the secrets of the future of Bitcoin. However, before we dive into our discussion, let's first take a closer look at the recent developments in the cryptocurrency market. Bitcoin's price action has been underwhelming, with a lackluster monthly close and the closure of its weekend futures gap. Now, without further ado, let's begin our enlightening discussion with Greg Foss.
Bitcoin is extremely cheap on a number of metrics, and I'm comfortable buying it at 30,000 because I think that it is so darn cheap. And, I use one model that uses credit default swaps. I can use another model that values Bitcoin at over $2 million in today's dollars, because it's the world's best store of value based on math and code that cannot be manipulated by any centralized authority. Coin market's still too small. In the context of global financial assets, Bitcoin is a very small market, so I think you have to look at other markets for those signals rather than just Bitcoin. But let's talk about the debt ceiling quickly. It is political theater. How many times has it bumped up against the limit and then they fix it, only to come back to have to adjust the limit down the road? Now, look, I'm betting, it's not certain, but most likely that they do solve the current debt fiasco. But we're going to
printing. I mean, that's
that's fair. But they have to be able to print, essentially. Yeah. Here's the flip side. We're going to be back at the table in less than 8 months because $1.5 trillion will do nothing, because that'll get used in less than 6 months. So we're going to be back at the table in less than 6 months, negotiating another increase in the debt ceiling, over $2 million per Bitcoin in today's dollars. I don't care about anything else. I own Bitcoin for the next 20 years. If you ask me how it gets to my price target, I don't care.
On June 1st, Bitcoin once again became a focal point as the monthly close brought disappointment. The gains made over the weekend were completely erased, and Bitcoin found itself back in a familiar range for the day. This range was centered just below $27,000, a level that Bitcoin has frequently visited since mid-April. The pair erased its entire uptick seen over the weekend, coming full circle to act in a familiar range on the day. This centered on the area immediately below $27,000, with Bitcoin frequently visiting it since the middle of April. A popular trader named Gel tweeted about the situation, suggesting that the last dip before this falling wedge breaks out and sends us back to $30,000. He pointed out the confluence of factors at the $26,750 region, including the CME gap and the golden pocket on the Fibonacci retracement. However, Gel stated that he would observe how the price reacts when it reaches that level before considering any trades. TraderSkew also didn't find many positive signals from the order book composition and trader activity. He noted that the gap has been filled but described the overall market as weak. Based on the information available, traders and analysts seem cautious and are closely monitoring the price movements and key levels to determine the next potential trend.
So when we say that Bitcoin is priced in fiat, that's just a measuring stick. But I like to say one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. There will be a time when fiat is actually priced in Bitcoin, not the flip side. And you have to understand that. Energy will be the most important step. That will be the big event that I believe causes people to realize why Bitcoin is so darn cheap at a price that it's currently trading at today relative to where it could go, priced in fiat. Now, again, pricing something in fiat is like pricing something in a ruler or measuring something in a ruler that continuously changes, right? I mean, the government's changed the length of a ruler. So you can't rely on that unit of account. Ultimately, I believe there will be a time when everything else is priced in Bitcoin, and that is the truest measure of account. Bitcoin. If we go back to the principle that 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, then we don't get confused with, the relative trading pair. We call it a trading pair. So, much like the Canadian dollar trades as a trading pair against the US dollar, the Bitcoin trades as a trading pair against the US dollar. That trading pair is on its way out, in my opinion. And that's why if you start with how about this? What is Bitcoin worth in a barrel of oil? Okay, so you have a volume of oil. How much of that barrel of oil does 1 Bitcoin buy? You've taken the US dollar out of the equation altogether. Does one Bitcoin equal, so you could do the math in your head, $30,000 US per Bitcoin, 1 barrel of oil equals, we're running with it, but that will change over time so that you measure Bitcoin in barrels of oil, not in fiat. But how does the trend begin? It begins even with the development of the Bitcoin commerce. You have places like El Salvador where you don't ever transact in US dollars. Yeah, it's only a small part of the population, but it's a toehold that will increase. So you have it increasing at the micro level. Does it happen at the macro level quickly? I don't know. But those sorts of macro events, they do happen. And when they happen, they change the whole world order. Price everything in a digital commodity that's transferable, portable, verifiable, everything that's beautiful about Bitcoin that you can't do with gold. I mean, how much gold currently exists in the vaults? We don't know. It's not auditable. And how much of that gold that we think exists in the vaults could be tungsten? I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not pitching gold. I am pitching Bitcoin, which is defendable by math and code, and you don't argue with that. You give a target, but not a time. Because if you do both, you'll be wrong on one, right? So, well, you could, but I would just say it's a process, okay? So, you look at my price target on Bitcoin, and then people ultimately ask, well, when's it going to get there? And I say, I can't give both. I can give a target, but not a time. I measure the target in today's dollars, and then by the time it gets there, we do the adjustment as to what it would be in today's dollars. The same thing. Why does it get to that price? Well, there's global macro events that include these types of events. I don't know when they'll happen. I'm just very comfortable projecting that they will happen. It's just the law of probabilities. There's no way your tax base can keep up with just the pure interest expense on the debt. So that debt is growing organically to the point where it eventually explodes.
In the month of May, Bitcoin's price experienced a 7% decline, according to data from CoinGlass. This performance can be considered average considering the highly variable nature of the month. In contrast, Bitcoin is currently 5.5% lower in the second quarter, which is in stark contrast to the gains of over 70% seen in the first quarter. Decentrader, a trading suite, analyzed multiple timeframes and did not find any compelling indications of an abrupt trend change at the moment. In terms of liquidity, Bitcoin is currently in a state of equilibrium. The downside is currently being supported by the 200-week moving average, 200 WMA, while significant liquidity can be found above $30,000 on the upside. Thank you for your continued support and engagement. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content.